What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? It's been a while since I've had to do one of these, y'all. It's been probably since the beginning of February. So almost 2 months since I've had to record one of these intros because I knew what was coming and I had to get ready for what became Menace to Sobriety March last month. I did not mean to shove my old band's shit down everybody's throat. I really didn't, but it's just the way that things worked out. We actually had all those Tales from the Menace episodes recorded back in February, actually. Or I'm sorry, back in December is when we recorded it. It was supposed to be released in February, but then obviously we had the incident that happened with Twig. And I made the executive decision, like, if I'm going to release these and we're going to be doing a show to remember him at, man, we gotta release him in March. So it just turned out that way. So again, I apologize that March became Menace to Sobriety March, but hey, it's just the way the chips fell. And to be honest, a lot of that content was really good. All of it, in my opinion, was really good. I think everybody that got a chance to watch it enjoyed it immensely. And not only that, man, we got a chance to say goodbye to our homies. So I won't say too much more of it because, again, I just spent an entire month talking about that. But if you haven't had a chance to go back and check it out, please do. Some of my favorite material I've recorded to date. And it's actually inspired me quite a bit to do more stuff like that. So, I mean, like as far as like in-person interviews and stuff like that goes. And hey, we're not done with the Tales from the Menace episodes. We will continue those. We're going to let it breathe for a little while because, like I said, it would turn out to be Menace March. So we'll just let it ride for a bit and keep doing stuff like this. But before we get into my sponsor and all the nitty gritty with my guest today, who is RileyTejcek. Oh man, this was such a good one. Such an amazing individual. Somebody that so motivated in life and really shows anybody out there that, hey, it's never about, what you are doing. It's about, are you passionate? And man, she's got so many things going on in her life. And we'll get to all that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting everybody's feedback. But before we do that, I do want to fill you in on this because I know not everybody does social media that watches this, which if you do, look up The Rose Show on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at The Rose Show Pod. Same thing, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, The Rose Show Pod. I posted this on my Facebook account, though, a couple weeks ago. I am going to be taking a layoff here pretty soon because I've got to have some work done in my mouthful region. I don't know if that's right. Is that a real word? Mouthful? I don't know. We'll use it. I gotta have some work done in my gums because I'm an idiot. And I put it off for too long being 20 years, even though I've had insurance for I don't know how long. I could have done this a long time ago. I didn't. I'm nearing that age where it's time to start paying attention to some of that shit. 40 ain't here yet, but it's right around the corner. So I'm starting to pay attention to a lot of that stuff. So here in a couple weeks, we're going to be taking a little bit of a layoff, probably about 3 to 4 weeks. But rest assured, the show is coming back. That's why I'm getting ahead of this now to let everybody know there's going to be a little bit of a layoff because I won't be able to speak. And that's kind of required to do this job. So, but like I said, I will be back. No worry about that. The show will continue, but unfortunately it's out of my control. So I'm sorry for those that look forward to this every Wednesday. And I know that there's a bunch of people who are starting to get that established repertoire with me where they expect me to drop something every Wednesday and it will come back. So hold your horses. The Rose got to do some shit, unfortunately. But anyway, enough of all that. Just wanted to fill y'all in with it. Thank you everybody again for being with us all month last month. Great times. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks before said layoff. And I've got some real special stuff coming up. So stay tuned. And wherever you're watching this at, don't forget to like and share and subscribe so you can follow the show at all times. Anyway, enough of my babbling. Let's hear from my sponsor. And then we'll get into my interview with RileyTejcek. Here we go, y'all. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jay, and I'm here for W Energy, my sponsors. Now, what is W Energy, you might ask? W Energy is clean, jitterless energy. Better than the canned stuff that you would get at your convenience stores, your gas stations, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have all that trash in it. Now, how do I know? Because I myself use W Energy. So what I've got here, a couple of limited edition flavors. For instance, W Energy puts out this stuff called Grandpa's Ginger Water. I know it don't sound that great, but it is amazing. Limited run that they came out that I've got actually multiple tubs of. I believe in W Energy. I use W Energy myself. Also, this was just released and it's another limited edition flavor that they come out with, and it's called Pom Blom. It's pomegranate blossom. Real nice, clean flavor. And a lot of W Energy, whether it be classics like Calio Cream or the Dub Sludge, whatever it might be, It is clean energy. It's not going to make you feel all crappy at the end of the day after using it. Now, here's what I want you to do, because again, they're obviously a sponsor of mine. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to www.w.gg, order one of the sampler packs, which you get one of these cool tumblers, a part of the sampler pack. And I want you to grab one, but don't use my promo code. That's right. Don't use my promo code who else at checkout, because I want you to try it without thinking I'm just trying to sell you a bill of goods. Try it one time, and then when you go back to buy your second order of W Energy, then use my promo code who else at checkout for a 10% discount, because all you're gonna do is try it. I know you're gonna love it. That's how much I believe in this product, and I thank them for sponsoring the show today. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today, this might be my longest intro I've ever done when I'm introducing my guest, but it's awesome the amount of things that she has done and accomplished in her lifetime. She is a captain in the United States Marine Corps, a pageant winner, a bobsled pilot for Team USA, a game show contestant, and as of today, as of this moment, this recording, as we're sitting here talking to each other, she is a children's books author. But we'll get into all that here in a little bit. It is RileyTejcek, my friend. How are we doing today?
I am so excited, and what a special day you and I get to celebrate on my book launch. Only podcast today just for you and your audience. Yeah.
Yes, I am. I feel so fortunate. I didn't even know that this was happening today when I asked to book you out, and then later I found out. I'm like, oh, that couldn't have gone any more perfect. I hope I'm not inconveniencing her in any way. But hey, it worked out great.
No. Yeah, it was meant just for you.
Yes, yes, I am the chosen one. Well, let's go ahead and start at the very beginning with you. Give us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got started on this multiple journey life that you live.
I grew up and I was born in Carmel, Indiana. If you know anything about Carmel, Indiana, it is a great town area to live, not a lot of military, but very patriotic at the same time. My father was a professional baseball player. My mom was a self-made businesswoman, was adopted, was the first person to go to college in her family. So they really drove home from a parenting style, athletics and academics. So grateful for that. And that is really the baseline of what propelled me into who I am today. I wanted to be like my father, so I wanted to be a professional athlete. Shocker, he was like my hero. Like kids were sending him his baseball cards to sign. I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And my mom taught me the discipline of academics. And what it means is like, hey, it's great to be pretty and be feminine, but like you need to be smart and you need to know what you're talking about. So I accepted a Division I softball scholarship to George Washington University. That's when I met a Marine for the first time. Never thought I could be a Marine as a woman, to be honest. I never saw it. Decided to go through the Marine Corps, play Division I athletics, commissioned, started this crazy journey of bobsled a year later. So I didn't do the sport of bobsled till I was 23. Decided to be bold and courageous through my faith, and which has been a pillar of my whole existence. And then was like, I'm just not done. I love putting myself out there. I love doing fun, spontaneous like things. And I don't think I'm afraid of being told no. I've been told no plenty of times. I fell on my face more times than I could tell you. But because of that, I went ahead and I applied for game shows. I decided to write a children's book without ever doing it. Um, did a pageant. I'm not a pageant person and all these things. So that's kind of the background of my story a little bit.
Okay, so two specific things that we have to cover real quick. One, I didn't know until this very second. You said your father was a professional baseball player. I am a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. I almost wore my Reds jersey because, as we're talking right now, by the time this releases, opening day will be
Mhm.
gone. So I didn't. But a huge Reds fan, have been since I was like 3 years old. What position and what teams did your dad play for?
So my dad was a mix. He did outfield primarily, but he also played infield. So he was infield in college, went to the University of Arizona, had a lot of success there in the Pac-12, then transitioned and was in the Seattle Mariners program.
Oh, nice, nice, very nice. And then also, what I did want to ask you in particular, I'm 38 years old. Not to date myself or anything like that, but when when I when I hear bobsled, I think Cool Runnings. And
Yes.
anybody my age. Matter of fact, I was telling some people I work with I'd be interviewing you, and the first words that come out of their mouth was, "Are you going to give her a lucky egg to give to her?" And I'm like, "Knock it off, knock it off." That is a very specific goal to have. That's not really something like you don't have bobsled teams in school, at least in
Mhm.
Ohio where I grew up. You don't see professional bobsledding on TV. How did you come to that decision of like, you know what, I want to do bobsledding? Because again, that's a very unique goal.
It's extremely unique and it's a very niche community. And essentially, what you're going to find is a lot of people only know about bobsled from Cool Runnings. I've been asked that more times than not. Unfortunately, the younger generation doesn't know it, and it's like breaking my heart. So I
Sure.
think they need to make like remake that Disney. Um, but it was through college, and I think it was through God that just like opened up a door for me. So playing softball at George Washington University met one of our alumni was Alana Myers Taylor, who's one of the most decorated bobsled athletes in the world. So, because I played softball, I had met her because in 2018 she
Mm.
won a silver medal. She came to the university, she gave a speech, and I essentially told one of my teammates, in another life, I'd be a bobsledder. But at the time, I was so focused on the Marine Corps, I didn't even think that was a possibility.
Yeah. I've got a couple of friends that are in the Marines myself. One still active. He's been active for about 20 years, another one retired. And they all find it to be one of the more rewarding things that they've done in their
Mhm.
lives. One in particular, he grew up with me. I don't I'm obviously not gonna give his name, but he grew up with me and he was always real troubled. All never had any direction. Um, and then he decided to join the Marines because that was literally all he could do left. And like I said, he's been in it for 20 years later. He drives around. Well, last time I talked to him, he drives around generals. I mean, it's a big deal for, he's made a career out of it. But he's both of them also found challenges because look, and no disrespect to any other branch of the military, all branches of the military are tough. But when you're a Marine, you have to be built differently, and I
Yeah.
know that from talking to some of these people. Did you find any specific challenges? Because again, you said that you didn't see any other women doing this.
Mhm.
Did you find any specific challenges when you decided to join the Marine Corps that you didn't see coming, or do you think you were well prepared for it in your entire journey with the Marines?
I don't think you're ever prepared. I think you hear stories about boot camp. You can study the material, you can study, ask people, you can learn some things, but until you really experience it and you do something like that that's so hard and challenging, you don't know what your body's in mental mindset is capable of. And that's what I
Sure.
love so much about the Marine Corps is I was 18 years old. I went to officer candidate school for the first time, and I was blown away by how hard it was. And
Yeah.
hard is relative, but I was a collegiate athlete. Like I've gone through hard workouts and long nights studying and balancing both at a very prestigious school, and the Marine Corps was a whole new level of hard. And I tell you why. Because they're breaking you down to rebuild you into the leader that you're meant to be. And one of
Yeah.
those challenges was the fact that it's not about you. It's about the people around you, and you have to be
Right.
selfless. And you're going to take 18-year-olds, break them down, no sleep, barely any food, take them away from their comforts. So little sleep, no communication with their families, like pull all these things from you. And then you're going to break them down. And I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to tell you this example. This was hard for me. I'm 18. I'm in a billet, so a position where basically I'm in charge of my peers. Leading your peers, one of the hardest things to ever do, right? So I'm leading my peers. We're going on this hike, and I get a packing list, a decentralized command. I tell everyone once, I tell the next level down for them to go and spread the word. It's very simple. Here's a packing list. Here's what you're supposed to bring. Clear as mud. We get out to the hike and we complete it. We bivouac. So we're sleeping outside. And one of the girls essentially had forgotten one of her items. And all
Mm.
of a sudden, the sergeant instructors like swarm. And when I'm telling you the story and leading it up, I asked the question, who do you think they were yelling at and was in your face? Most people would be like, well, probably the girl. It was her fault, right? On the contrary, they're in my face. They're in my face, screaming, yelling. And I'm like, what the? Like, I was squared away. Out of 50 people, 49 of us understood the assignment. Like, it's this girl that's jacked up. And in that moment, what was hard? I had to take extreme ownership and accountability for someone else's mistake that I felt like at the time I had no control over. And
Yeah.
that was hard. So, yes, mentally, physically, emotionally, cool. But reprocessing your brain on leadership styles is hard. And the Marines do that better than anybody. And that's why I believe that we have such a strong, like, aura about us. Like we are known all around the world when I deployed. People are like, you're United States Marine, like you're disciplined, you're squared away, you're fit, but you lead like no one's ever seen. That we're all riflemen, that we could pick up a weapon at any time, regardless of our specialty, and we all know how to do the same thing. And that was hard to wrap your head around as an 18-year-old, but a lesson that I am forever grateful for.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I also at one point, I don't remember how old I was. I want to say like 22, but I didn't have a whole lot of direction either. So I wanted to try to join the Marines because again, I had a couple friends who were. Unfortunately, they wouldn't take me because I still have it to this day. But back then, I had eczema really bad, and they didn't have nearly the amount of treatments that they do now for it. So it was like. I just kind of got left out, but I was trying to mentally prepare myself for some of that stuff, and I was asking some of my friends like, tell me some of the situations that you have to deal with boot camp because apparently, and anybody watching this is going to make total sense to them. Apparently, everyone around me at the time thought, you're never going to make it through boot camp because you can't take somebody yelling at you without yelling back. And I'm like, no, it's different. It's different, mom. I'm going to get yelled at. It's fine. It's fine. So I'm like trying to mentally prepare myself to figure this out. And then they told me, they being one of my friends that was in the military active at that point in time, he's no longer anymore, was telling me about some of the things he dealt with in boot camp where, and I don't know if this is all boot camp, but this was specific to what he was telling me, where apparently there's a day where you crawl around in some trenches and they fire live rounds over your head while you do that. Um, and he was telling me about some of this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I think this is the moment where I know I'm not made for this shit. And granted, this was in like 2008 or something like that, so I don't know if they still do
Yeah.
that. But I heard that, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. I was hoping for like a computer job. I'm really good at computers or something like that. So I have a lot of
Yeah.
respect for people that have been through that because it changes you completely, not only physically but mentally, and that speaks to exactly what you just said. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So, other than really the leadership aspect of it, do you think because you joined the Marines, if I understood your story right, you joined the Marines before you started down all these other paths, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
College athletes, softball was already there, but
right.
everything else was after, yes.
So do you think one of the transformations that one of my friends came back after boot camp, he was a completely different person. And I don't mean as far as like
Mhm.
physical, I mean mental. He
Yeah.
was more mentally disciplined and more confident than I'd ever seen him in my entire life. And the confidence was the thing that stood out to me the most because he was always real docile and really soft spoken and never really rocked the boat. And he comes back and we're going to clubs and he's picking out random girls to dance with. And I'm like, who is this guy? A completely different person, right? Do you think that training helped you get on the path to start all these different things? Because it sounds like that's the case.
I would say so. I think that was a major factor. I don't think it's the only factor, but I definitely think
Mhm.
it was a strong contributing one. The Marine Corps teaches you how to lead from the front and be bold with your decisions, but also
Yeah,
make quick decisions that are calculated. And I think that's what you're seeing is, okay, well, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to do hard things because I've already done hard things. So if this girl, for example, doesn't want to talk to me, doesn't dance with me, I won't know if unless I put myself out there. And very similar to some
right.
of the things that I have done. I would also say a factor of me is my faith and being bold and through that and having that piece. But the Marine Corps did lay a foundation. And I am such a strong believer that the military is actually a great path for so many more people than what they realize because of the
Yeah,
things that it teaches you. I did not have the desire initially to join the Marine Corps. I went to George Washington University, a very prestigious university and school. I got a top degree, graduating magna cum laude. I studied Russian. I worked for a congressman. I could have been very successful in another job making a lot more money, but I have so much wealth and experience and what it feels like to be a Marine and have earned that title and the knowledge and self-awareness that I have learned is priceless. And
yeah.
I wish that more people, especially in today's society, could go through a similar training and experience what it really feels like of what are you able to push yourself to? Like, what is that limit? And where do you want to break? And why do you want to break? And how do we keep you from going forward and building that resiliency by doing things that are hard, but mentally being more aware of the people around you and truly functioning as a team instead of individual selves?
Mm. you could be the first guest that it is impossible to get fully prepared for because you just listed off two other jobs I didn't even know that you did. Like you said, you worked for a congressman as well.
During college, yep.
Wow, what did you do for them?
I was one of their interns throughout college, and so spent about 6 to 8 months working for Congressman John Carter out of Texas. I was attracted to his region because Fort Hood was there. So I wanted to know,
Oh,
how was our government representing military policy? I was very, very involved in giving back to our veterans and stuff like that. So I did a variety of different things. And again, at that point, I knew I wanted to join the military, but I also thought about getting into politics eventually in the sense of running for some kind of office. So I wanted to get exposure to it.
sure.
I definitely think that that wasn't the path for me, but it was cool to see that perspective of it, especially what I know now as a Marine, right? Congress and the Senate are the ones who are passing these bills and rules that impact us directly. So I was able to see that side of the house to then make me a better Marine and see the holistic picture. So it was a great experience.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your other projects as well, because again, when you've got a laundry list of them. Um, pageant winner. I
Mhm.
noticed on your Instagram you have a couple pictures of that. Was that through the military then?
Kind of. So it wasn't like
Okay.
a DoD event. Like, it wasn't like the Marine Corps is like, "We're gonna have a military pageant." Um, it was something that I was actually reached out to through social media, which is really interesting, and I had someone basically, like, coming through my DMs, and I thought it was a massive joke and was like, "Hey, have you thought about joining a pageant? We're having this pageant. We're starting it up. It's called Mr. and Miss Military." And I was like, "No." Like, "No." And I'd say that jokingly because, yes, I can put on makeup and be feminine, but I am not the girl that's, like, strutting in stilettos all the time, have full face, like, I don't get my nails done. That was the first spray tan I've ever gotten. But what I really didn't like about my image of pageant was I don't wanna be judged based off of my appearance and my body, and I don't wanna be
Sure.
seen in, like, a sexual manner. To be honest, that's my honest thoughts, and as a Christian,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't really wanna be judged on my appearance. I wanna be judged on what's on the inside, and so what was really interesting about this pageant was they were like, "No, no, no, there is no, like, bathing suit competition, stuff like that. It's actually a military pageant that is centered around what you're doing for your veteran community." So it's about community service and outreach. It's about, yes, what is your talent? What is something that you bring to the table? How is your military education and knowledge of, like, implementing policies and this, that, and the other? So, in reality, I got to go there, wear, yes, an evening dress and answer questions, but I gotta show my talent of bobsled and come out in my speed suit and on the big screen show one of my races in Austria. And then I gotta talk about how I would influence policy, what I would change in the military and the DoD to make it continuously grow and be a role model and advocate for more people that want to come into the military. And I couldn't believe it. I ended up winning, which is insane. And the coolest part about it though was, one, I felt like a princess, and every little girl at some point in time wants to feel like a princess. But I got to go to military events. Like, I went to an air show and I got to wear my crown and my sash and just wear civilian attire. And I got to tell little girls that I was also a Marine. And that was like a clicking moment for people, which is a part of this book, which I know we'll get into. But it was a moment where little girls was like, wait a minute, you're a Marine? Because they're like, my dad's a Marine, my uncle, my grandfather, whatever. They're like, but you're like a princess. And I'm like, "Well, there doesn't have to be a separation." So, to
Right.
me, it was the response more of, like, the younger generation that made that so influential, and why I put that on there to show, like, you can do all of these things, and you don't have to lose your femininity while joining a male-dominated gunfighting organization such as the Marine Corps.
Yeah, and that is a theme that I've had multiple times on this show. One being a friend, and shout out to both of them. One being a friend of mine. Her name is Molly Gruesome. She's a rapper, and she has to deal with the same thing. Trying to deal with the balancing act of femininity in a male dominated industry. Another one being her name is Chelsea Connor. She's a local MMA fighter who's connected to the UFC around here. She said the exact same thing. There's so many times where she could have taken shortcuts and taken her clothes off for everybody, to see in the world. And that might have gotten her this opportunity, but she's a mom before anything else.
Mhm.
So what is that? And hey, I'm not trying. If anybody's listening to this and thinks I'm being judgy, I apologize. It's not what I mean here. It's just different paths of life. I don't think there's anything wrong with any way you want to go. This is just paths that, we're talking about that other people can take as well. It's not the only path out there. You can keep your femininity, as you said, and still be that, example and still get ahead. Obviously, I mean, look at you. You can still keep it and still, if you work hard enough for your dreams, and it's not really a Disney PSA here, but we're just saying,
Hmm.
like, if you just work hard at it, you can do it. And you guys are proof of that. So, um, speaking of not losing your femininity and still doing something active, let's talk about bobsledding, and then we'll get into your book real quick because I'm interested in this topic. I've never talked to somebody that's done this before. I'm sure anybody that talks to you hasn't really talked to anybody that's done this before. I got to be completely honest. I have been ice skating one time and I fell directly on my hip and I said, never again. This will never happen again. That was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I'd rather get kicked in the shin than fall on the ice anymore. What kind of challenges when you decided to go on this journey? What kind of challenges did you run into? Because this is obviously, as we discussed, this is not a normal path, but you're very successful at it. You're on Team USA. I mean, of course, you're successful at it. What kind of challenges did you run into trying to learn how to do this?
There are so many challenges in the sport of bobsled: physical, mental, emotional. I'll get into all three. One, physical. You are freezing cold. People are like, "Oh, you must like the cold. You bobsled." I'm like, "No, no human likes cold. Do you want to go take an ice cold shower?" Like, no, no one likes the cold. So you have the physical element of being freezing, getting the crap knocked out of you, going 90 miles an hour with
Ugh.
5 Gs, hitting walls. Goodness forbid you crash. And when people crash, what you don't understand is like a car accident that never stops because it's downhill. So you crash, you're on your head, you're concussed, you're trapped, your skin is literally burning off layer by layer as
Mm,
it's rubbing against the ice. You're scared, it doesn't stop. It can last for up to like 2 minutes, and you're injuring someone that you love behind you. Okay, that's physical.
right,
Emotional. You now are going into a sport where you're making zero money. You're actually losing money doing it. It's one of the most expensive sports in the world where we don't really get paid. You are being away from your family, your loved ones, having a 6 to 7 month season, traveling all over the world constantly from hotel to hotel to hotel, living out of a suitcase. Your team, Team USA, we all love each other, but we're competing against each other. So who's really your ally that you can count on? Like that's really difficult emotionally trying to figure that out. So let's then talk about mental. You're doing a sport where you're trying to get to find a hundredth of a second. And mentally, things are coming at you faster than they've ever been when you have to make split and distinct decisions, memorizing a track that is different. So all the tracks all around the world are completely different.
right.
So the mental fatigue of walking the track, being on, having that high alert, like mindset of like fight or flight that is like going 24/7 and not really being able to come down from that because you're going and you're going and going. Oh, and by the way, working other jobs because you can't afford to only be a bobsledder. You might say, Riley, then why the heck do you do it? That sounds terrible. I'm just showing you the behind the scene curtains of what people don't talk about and the glamour of it all. Why I do it. One, I felt called to it by the Lord. Two, it means something to me to represent my country, the United States of America. And I take that with extreme pride. And three, I'm a competitor. I want to freaking compete. I want to take those factors that suck so much and absolutely embrace it and throw myself at it again and again and again and again and again because I want to be the best. And if you want to be the best, you do things that are hard. And once you do things that are hard, it builds resiliency. Once you have resiliency, you'll do just about anything that you can put your mind to because you're like, I can do this. And it's that discipline of showing up every day and finding a hundredth of a second to have an advantage over the people next to you. It's a remarkable sport. It's one that not enough people know enough about. Cool Runnings didn't explain all of that, but it is one that is incredible, one of my favorites, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to partake in it.
Yeah, to echo what you said earlier, if you have never seen Cool Runnings, go watch it because it's an incredible movie. Look, that movie alone makes every time I watch it, I'm just like, man, if John Candy hadn't have passed, the career that man would have had just from that movie alone, I mean, he did excellent in that. And it really does show you, I think it does a good job at showing you just how dangerous stuff like that can be.
Mhm.
You don't really think of it. I think people kind of look at it as oh, I don't want to say that's not a real sport because I don't think people think that. I don't think people take it like it's serious almost. And then you listen to what you just described: crashing concussed, burning skin. Like, it takes a different kind of breed to do
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it'd be kind of cool to see, maybe a surgeon. Is there any kind of swelling as far as like, for instance, pickleball? Nobody knew what pickleball was like 2 or 3 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, pickleball exploded, and I don't know how. Is there any kind of groundswell for bobsledding when it comes like that? Is there like a fan base that's trying to push it, or is it just strictly Olympics only?
No, and that's what people don't realize is we just finished World Championships. I just had Olympic team trials 3 days ago.
Mm,
We have a full season just like anybody else. Like I said, October to March, 6 to 7 months. We're traveling the world. We're doing it all. It's just way more famous in Europe, unfortunately, but we're trying. We
oh,
just had World Championships at home in New York State 2 weeks ago, and USA won 2 gold medals within my federation. Like, it is frustrating to us though as athletes where we're like, everyone I talk to loves bobsled, thinks it's so cool. But they don't know how to follow, they don't know how to watch it, and so I am
right.
waiting for Netflix or freaking someone to hear me because I say this every single time. I'm like, "This is one of the most extreme, awesome sports in the world. All you have to do is find it, and let people know how to get more involved, and it's going to take off." It's better than pickleball in the sense of, yeah, not everyone can do it, but it's extreme, and when you're watching and you fall in love with the people and the story and be like, "Wow, these people work 3 other jobs, do how much of this stuff, but dedicate and have the guts and the glory to compete for USA. It's
Yeah.
incredible, and I don't think, honestly, my teammates have gotten enough credit, and I so hope and wish that in the future, this becomes more and more prevalent. Maybe this Olympic Games, maybe the next one. I don't know what it's gonna take, but I think that people need to start paying more attention because these athletes are incredible and they deserve it.
Yeah. Sounds like the sport's only one good documentary away from people being awake, for if
Yeah,
especially if you're saying if it's as big as it is in Europe. I had no idea until you just told me that there was a season, number one, or number two, that you guys were just, doing championship rounds in New York. Either that or either it needs one good documentary or a really good PR person for the sport, for sure. Because
yeah,
I think a lot of people would be into it. I think one of the reasons why I was into Cool Runnings is so much is because when you watch that, you can tell that is an extreme sport right there. But for some reason, it just doesn't get the credit for it. But hopefully that changes for you guys. And hopefully
yeah.
anybody watching this starts paying a little bit more attention to bobsledding. So, okay, let's go into your other project. The project, I think we're on what, number 5 now? Your other project, which is sitting right next to you to your left, your book. So, how did you come up with the idea to come up with this children's book? And I'll let you go ahead and give everyone the background on what it's all about.
Yeah, so a mix of everything we just talked about. I said on a podcast, no, on a news story 3 years ago, I want to write a book before I'm 30. And that came from the question of, well, Riley, what's next? And through talking in these podcasts and these interviews, I started really realizing my story was being told to adults through listening, but I wasn't hitting the children. And it was the child in me that never saw a Marine. And it was the child in me that didn't think that all the things that I'm doing was possible. So, a little true story about the book without giving too much of it away. This is a little illustration of one of the pages. This is my father. My father was a professional baseball player. We talked about that. He was a hero of mine. I didn't think I could get past college softball because that wasn't a thing at the time. So, okay, cool. My grandfather was a Marine. My grandfather was not in a Marine very long, he barely talked about it, but when he did, there was never a thought in his mind that asked if I could do it, or there wasn't any part of me that thought that was even a thing. I had so much, respect and love for him and what he did, but I was like, "No way." My younger sister, her name's Delaney, she was an Indy 500 princess and was worked on community service and got to like wear the tiara and tailgate, but she got to show what it was like to serve your community and be feminine, but like be smart and give back. So all of these things were lessons that I was able to talk about with people through a podcast, but I wasn't able to show that to children. And it was that younger version of Riley that never thought this was possible until she's 18 plus years old. So my thought was, hold up, the way the world's going right now, everything is digital. And unfortunately, some children's goals aren't what they used to. And I'm not saying that in a bad
Yeah.
way, but a lot of people want to be TikTok influencers and stuff like this. There's a misconception where it hurts my heart where I'm like, I want kids, not everyone, but to be want to be lawyers and doctors and athletes and military members and whatever that is, not knocking one career down more than the other, but I want that curiosity that's not just tied to your phone. And I think there's something about picking up a book and reading it and it being a real story with someone and it's a true, like not always fairy tale ending, but one that's accurate that you can follow along.
Yeah.
And this book is geared to children 4 to 8. Why 4 to 8? That's when their brain starts having that, like, I'm bold, I can do anything to, okay, I'm starting to have self-doubts because I'm starting to gather in information. And I want to reiterate to kids at this stage of their life, be bold, be courageous, put yourself out there. There's no limit to what you can do. And ultimately, my number one goal is that there is no longer any child out there, man or female, that doesn't think that they can join the military, to be honest. Goal number one. Goal number two, I want children out there to realize you don't have to put yourself in a box and do just one thing in this world. You can do honestly anything you want to do as long as you're kind, you're bold, and you're courageous. That's it. And I want them to see if you can dream it, if you can see it, you can visualize it. Someone who's done it that is underqualified, there's no reason why you can't do it either.
That's actually a really good point. And one of the things that I kind of want to point out real fast, and I've been saying this to everyone. Again, as I said earlier, I'm real big on technology. I have been since I was a teenager. So I kind of pay attention to trends and stuff like that just for fun. And as much as the technological boom took off in the last 10 years, in my personal opinion, I think there are some statistics that can back this up. People are kind of getting bored with technology. Like the flashy lights are no longer as flashy as they used to be. Why? Because at one point in time, it was like really prominent that people, everybody's got a flat screen in their home now. Once upon a time, if you had a big screen color TV and a big screen was like 36 inches, wow, you were rich. Now, if you don't have three or four flat screens in your house, what are you even doing with your life, right? But I say all that to say this. I think the allure of technology is starting to wear off in society. And the fact that all these streaming services all now have their own price tiers, I think you're going to start seeing people go back to DVDs. I'm already seeing people starting to collect physical objects more than ever. These figures right above my head right here, these have all taken off. They're just like little vinyl figures that people are like they're exploding. You can find these anywhere. More and more you're starting to see a return to physical copies of things, and I think within the next 10 years you're really going to start gravitating towards those. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because you're producing a physical book that these people
Mhm.
are going to want to see. Why? Because they can touch it, they can hold it, they can actually look at the papers, and it's not sitting behind a screen. There's not something in between them and the page is right there. Even with me and my wife, I find me and my wife are starting to collect more and more physical books than anything else. I have a comic book collection of like 3,000 comics in here that I've just been collecting for like the last 4 years. A, because I'm a dork. B, because I've always wanted, like, I can get every single one of these comics that are in my room right now on this if I wanted to. All I got to do is download the app. I don't want it on my phone. I want the physical copy. And a lot of my friends feel the same way. So I think it's very smart that you did that and put out the physical copy, because I honestly feel like society is going to start shifting towards that. And not only that, the message, as we already talked about this before, so I won't harp on it, the message that you're showing people. Hey, hard work can get you anywhere. Look, I've been in music for, my wife always makes fun of me about this because I always bring this up in every podcast, but I was in music for 15 years independently. I barely made a dime. I'm not going to sit here and act like I was broke, but I got to work with my idols. All my tour passes are right here in this thing right here behind me. I got to work with my idols. I got to do a festival that I always wanted to do called The Gathering. I toured around the country 3 different times with my best friends and my band. And I did all that because one day I got screwed from a promoter in Cleveland who told me that he didn't have time for me. And I'm like, you know what? I can do this myself. I don't need I don't need this other people to do this. I can book my own shows. I'm confident in myself. I can do this. I had no idea where I was going to start. I
Mhm.
had no idea where I was going to book the shows. I just knew if I wanted to apply myself, I could do this. That one night driving home from Cleveland led to 15 years of memories that I could never get back. And all I did was take the first step. So, what you're saying in that book might be for 4-year olds to 8-year olds.
Mhm.
but that applies to everyone across the board. There are so many people, and I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you today is I saw all the things you did. There are so many people that live a majority of their life being afraid of what could happen, that they allow nothing to happen, and then they become 40, 50, 60, 70, and they wonder, why didn't I try something with my life? Because you were too scared.
I think about this book and what you're gonna notice is that, yes, it's for children, and I've said this in a couple of my other segments, but I want parents to get something out of this too, because
Yes.
I think it's an endless opportunity of what you're gonna grab out of it. But I also want parents, I'm not a parent yet, wanna be. I want parents to realize that your children look at everything that you do, and that regardless, the go-to fault is like, who are your heroes in your life is your parents. Period.
Yeah.
I would say at least 80% of people. I know everyone doesn't have their parents and have rough upbringings, but I would say that to where your kids are watching everything that you do. So as parents, be cognizant. Like the lessons you teach your kids, the jobs that you choose to do, how you choose to treat your spouse, the people around you, all that stuff. Your kids are watching and they're going to try to emulate it. There's that nature versus nurture, like, your children are like soaking in everything that you're doing, and that is going to lay a foundation for how they live their future life, because I know it had in mine. And so I hope when parents read this too, it's like, if my child interviewed me asking me about what they want to do and how they want to be when they grow up, am I accurately showing that to them? And just as a reflection, and I don't mean that to like tell parents they're doing a bad job. I think sometimes parents downplay how hard of a job it is to teach kids and to
Yes.
raise them, and that none of us are perfect. But I think it could serve as a good reminder. And then lastly, to your point, what you just talked about, I love it, right? I love when we're like, yes, I'm like, yes, yes, I'm like your little cheerleader. It takes sometimes getting punched in the face,
Yeah.
being told no, to sit back up one day and be like, well, then F this, I'm gonna figure it out. I don't know how,
Yes.
I don't know where to start. I don't, I don't know anything, but I'm gonna do it. And most people will either choose to go that route or they'll let what stopped them, that failure, that being told no, cripple them and be like, well, okay, then I guess I tried and this dream is over. It's your decision. And what separates the successful people from the complacent people is the successful people have failed more times than the complacent people because they put themselves out there more. And most people don't realize that algorithm. And the last thing I'll say that like goes along with this, everyone is jealous of the outcome and not the process.
Oh,
Everyone is jealous of
yes.
the outcome and not the process that it took to get there. Everyone can be jealous that, oh, she has a book come out, or oh, she's a Team USA athlete, or oh, she's a Marine. And it's like, I guarantee you, you're not jealous of all the steps and the hardships and the sometimes trauma that it took to get here. And so
Yeah.
I just want to remind that in people that don't underplay other people's accomplishments. If you want these things, you got to be willing to sacrifice, put in the work. Sometimes it's really awesome. Sometimes you're going to fall on your face and it's going to suck and hurt more than anything. But I guarantee you, your odds, like Michael Jordan talked about, the more times you shoot, the more times you're gonna make those shots. If you don't shoot,
Yes.
you're not gonna make it. It's plain and simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, last thing I want to ask you about, because I've always been curious at how tall Steve Harvey is. You were on Family Feud. Let's talk about that experience. How did that go for you? Because I saw that and I was like, okay, we have to at least talk about this for a second. How fun was that? Because I've always got,
Uh,
look, real talk. Me and my wife will sit here in this very room and we'll play like the PlayStation version or something like that. And I always have such a great time. I'm like, I want to go. So I saw you were on it. And I'm like, okay, I at least have to ask her how this experience went. What was that like?
Amazing. Full disclosure, this was filmed 3 days before I deployed to Iraq.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was such a family gathering that was so special, a moment that I wanted to have with my family before I left. And the background behind it, and again, I'm curious if you knew this. My mom and I were on a game show a year and a half prior, and we won.
I did see that. Yes, I
Okay,
saw that
so
as
you knew
well.
that.
Yeah.
So my mom
Mhm.
and I were on a game show. We had won, and my parents threw this like massive like celebration of like watch party, right? Cool. They're proud. We obviously knew we had won that game. We didn't tell anybody. We kind of downplayed it. So it was really, really fun to see everyone's reaction. And I saw my dad and my sister, and they were so proud. They made this a moment all about us, but I could feel them wanting to be a part of it. And so I was talking to my mom, and I was like, well, what if we applied for Family Feud? That way we all get to experience it. We're like, well, let's see. And it took 2 years. We tried out once, didn't make it, tried out again, we ended up making it. And it ended up literally being 3 days before I got on a plane to Iraq, which any other time filming later, I wouldn't have been able to make it. And it allowed me to have that moment with my family before I was spent 6 months away from them in Baghdad, and it was incredible. It will air on April 24th and 25th, so people will be able to see it. It was one of the best times I've ever had in my life. The adrenaline, the excitement. I think you guys are in for a real treat with that episode for sure. You're gonna have some laughs and all different kinds of fun reactions that I will just leave it at that. Steve Harvey, hilarious. In person, even funnier. Um, Head is definitely very bald and shiny, but his
Yeah.
jokes are absolutely incredible. He is sharp as a whip, and a lot of the stuff I don't think makes it onto filming that he says, and it's probably for the best sometimes, but I was out there dying, and it makes the atmosphere so much more fun and relaxed when you're competing. It allows you to just kinda, like, settle in and sit in, and I wish I could do it 10 times over, and because it was so fun and your adrenaline just through the roof, I honestly feel like it was a daze and a dream. And so I'm actually excited to watch it back, being, several months later and being like, whoa. Because I think there's things that I've forgotten because I just like was in the black, right? I was just like, let's go. So yeah, I'm in for a treat just as much as all the viewers.
Well, I will definitely be watching for it. Riley, this has been a pleasure. I love your energy. I'm so glad that I got a chance to talk to you today on your launch day for your book. Even though it wasn't planned, this has been awesome. I got a lot of respect for all the ambitions that you do. Like I said, I didn't even know that you did a fraction of what you did until after we booked this. And I do a lot of research on my guests before we even sit down. Obviously, I couldn't do enough to keep up with you, but I've got a lot of respect for people, as you could tell, I'm sure, that go out and chase, they know what they want and they chase it. And you have chased all the right things. Thank you so much for your service to this country. I cannot thank you enough for that. Just alone, it takes a massive amount of sacrifice to do that. Again, I got friends, and my father an active military member. And so I've got a lot of respect for people who do that. So thank you again. And not only that, I just love your ambition. I love that you're such a go getter and you're not afraid to go after your dreams and do something hard like falling on ice over and over and over again. Because I'm a grown man who's 6'3" and I ain't ever doing that ever again. So you got all the respect in the world from me. But why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you, social media, website for the book, all that good stuff. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, well, first of all, Jay, thank you so much for creating this platform, allowing me to come on and inviting me. So thank you forever. You are part of my tribe and a part of my support system because of it. You guys can follow me on Instagram, Riley.Tejcek. There's only one, a lot of fake accounts, be careful, or two, LinkedIn. Again, there's not as many fake accounts on LinkedIn. I think people are more professional. Be careful, people. Scammers are out there. Those are my two social medias. For my book, it is officially out. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, or through my publishing company, In Game Press, or you can message me directly if you want to talk about getting signed autographs or copies or anything like that. I'm happy to share those opportunities. But if anything, thank you for listening. Be strong, bold, and courageous. There's nothing that you can't accomplish in this world. And I'm a resource. If you have any questions or want to talk more about anything that you heard today, please reach out. I reply to every single message that's not inappropriate. So we'll talk soon.
Yeah, very much heavy on the not inappropriate part on that one for sure. Riley, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.